Okay, petty cash. Petty cash is literally like a drawer of cash in the office. Like, so the accounting controller, right, the individual who's responsible for the accounting of a company will usually keep cash, or random individuals within the firm will keep cash, and it'll usually be locked up in somebody's drawer. And that's what we refer to as petty cash. And we're going to use petty cash um, exactly as it sounds, right? So if we go to the dollar store and we buy some treats for a particular function in the office, and we spend like $20 on a bunch of random stuff, we could use $20 of cash, and we grab that $20 of cash from the petty cash drawer. Or we could use our own cash, and then we would go back to work and say, hey, I need to be reimbursed. I just spent $20 at the dollar store. Okay, so petty cash is what we are now talking about. We're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about establishing petty cash. Then we will talk about maybe replenishing petty cash. Don't ask me how to spell that. Replenishing petty cash. We could talk about increasing petty cash. Maybe we decided initially we wanted $500 of petty cash, but we realized that's not really enough, so we want to increase the amount of petty cash that we keep to like $700. And then we're going to deal with cash shortage or overage. And that has to do with, are we, again, that's probably the worst looking overage of all time. All right, fair enough. Overage, right? Maybe I'll try it again. I guess I won't. Things have to be difficult. Okay, forget it. I'm not gonna do that. Okay, overage. Overage is, man, I swear to God, maybe I might just leave it as it is. Okay, fine. You know what I'm gonna do? Overage. Forget it. Okay, I'll just try it one time. Okay, I just saved you 5 minutes of me yelling and screaming at my computer, but I've got to resolve now. Okay, not even gonna bother trying to spell overage for you. Um, Overage, I think. But my spelling's bad and my writing's even worse. So I'm just gonna give up on that. Okay, let's talk about the first thing. Let's establish petty cash. And what we're doing is we are taking money out of the bank, okay, and we're putting it into a drawer that we are going to call petty cash. And so these are both essentially cash accounts, and we're just taking money from one account to the other. So what I would do, if let's say I want to establish petty cash of $500, I would debit petty cash because petty cash is an asset, and therefore I would debit petty cash, and then I would credit cash 500. And all we're really doing is putting money in one pocket. Well, we're taking it out of one pocket and putting it in another. Okay, so if I were to add up all of my petty cash, okay, and then all of my cash, the sum of those two things is essentially cash. And so we are now talking about how do we deal with this now? I'm on slide 30, okay? The internal controls and cash equivalents, those were slides 1 through 29, and I do believe that you should open those up and have a look at those. But I want to say that most of the homework questions are going to be either petty cash, which is this lecture, or bank reconciliation, which is the next lecture. But we're essentially on slide 30. And we now want to establish and then use our petty cash, right? So slide 32, it's the same journal entry that I gave you. It just looks a little nicer in the book, but it's coming out of cash and going into petty cash. Okay. Now we would talk about how do we use petty cash. And so look, during the period, okay, I'm not going to be doing journal entries every time I grab some cash out of petty cash. I'm going to deal with it a lot of the same way that we dealt with supplies. Okay. So I'm going to have this drawer of cash that we call petty cash. And every single time I use some money, I'm just going to keep a little sticky note. I'm just going to put a little sticky note. And what it could say is it could be, hey, used $20 for stamps. And then I could have another sticky note. It's terrible looking sticky notes. Used $30 for coffee. And then I can maybe have one more. Actually, I'll have, maybe I could do a few more. I would use 20 for lunch. And then maybe I'll just have one more. And that one was, I don't know, used 60 for dry cleaning. Okay. So what I'm going to do at the end of the period is I'm going to add up two things. I'm going to add up the physical cash, and then I'm going to add up all of these sticky notes. Okay. So first, I'm going to add up the sticky notes. And based on, I think, the way I just articulated it, I used 20 for stamps, 30 for coffee, so there's 50 right there. Used another 20 for lunch. Can't even read my own fucking writing, right? So there's 70, and then finally we used 60 more for our dry cleaning for a total of, God help me that I don't do this right in my head, but it looks like 130. So 60, 90, 110, 130. Yeah. And then I'm going to open up the cash drawer and I'm going to count all of the cash. And let's just say that in this example, I count all the cash and it comes back and I have 370. And therefore I reconcile, right? The total is 500, which is the exact amount that we use to establish it. So everything looks really good here, right? The sticky notes plus all the cash equal $500. So I haven't lost anything in the month. So now what I want to do is I want to replenish, right? So I just used $130. Well, now I want to go get another $130. And then I also want to record all of these uses of cash as expenses. So the journal entry to record these expenses and to replenish our cash would be, I would go maybe meals and entertainment. And I think I've got this one for meals and entertainment and this one for meals and entertainment. So I would debit meals and entertainment, and that's an expense for 50. Then I would do miscellaneous expenses, right? And the miscellaneous expenses are stamps and dry cleaning for a total of 80, right? Now I've got my 130 expenses listed, and then I'm going to go pull from cash 130. So physically, I'm going to take cash out of the bank and I'm going to put it back into the petty cash drawer. I'm going to throw away all of these receipts from this period and we're good. Or maybe I will save them for my books and records if we ever get audited. But this is essentially replenishing petty cash. And that's the journal entry. All right, let's do another one. Let's increase our petty cash, right? So if I want to increase petty cash, if I currently have petty cash of 500 in my drawer and I want to increase it to 700, man, I'm going to just pull out another $200 and put it in petty cash. And so to increase petty cash to 700 in this example would be petty cash 200 and cash 200. Man, it's about as simple as it gets. Okay, now let's assume that we use our petty cash, and at the end of the month, there's a problem. We don't reconcile, right? We've lost some cash somehow, and we call that cash shortage. Okay, so let's assume we have petty cash of 700. I'm going to keep this super simple. And then I've got some vouchers. I've got one voucher that is $20 for coffee. I've got another voucher that is $40 for lunch. And then I've got one last voucher, which is, let's call it $30 for some snacks. Okay? Again, at the end of the period, I'm going to reconcile all of my vouchers and count up all my cash. So all of my vouchers or sticky notes, that is a total of $90. Then in this example, I'm going to add up all of my cash, and let's just say that I've got $530 of cash. So the vouchers plus my cash is going to equal 620, which means I am now short by $80. I've lost $80. Okay, it happens, right? It could be all sorts of different reasons. It could be that unfortunately somebody may have stolen from us. It could be that we accidentally, gave somebody, we thought we were giving them a 20, but instead we actually gave them a $100 bill for the coffee. And then the employee never told us that we gave him or her a $100 bill. But there could be all sorts of different reasons why. And it doesn't have to be some malicious thing. And to be fair, it's not even anything that we would potentially worry about, right? So if you think about Apple computers, they probably have hundreds of millions of dollars in cash. And so if $80 turns up missing, that's not something that people are going to lose a whole lot of sleep over. Now, if it happens over and over again, okay, and there seems to be something odd, then maybe we would look into it. But here and there, things are going to happen. And so the way that we deal with this is we deal with the cash shortage in the journal entry to replenish cash, okay? So again, in this one, I'm going to debit meals and entertainment expense by $90. Then I am going to replenish cash, right? I need to go get some cash. If I've only got 530 and I have to bring it back up to 700, then I'm going to go get 170 in cash. And then I have to recognize finally this cash shortage. And cash shortage, that is a loss of wealth, right? So we're lowering our equity and it's like a miscellaneous expense. So we call it cash shortage. And if I'm lowering my equity or wealth, I would lower it with a debit. And so I would debit cash shortage, $80. Now, alternatively, we could have a cash overage, and a cash overage would mean that we have too much cash. And we can quickly look at that. Okay, last example on petty cash. Let's deal with a cash overage. Okay, so we still have petty cash, and I'm going to make this one even easier. Petty cash of 700. And then I just have one voucher for, let's say, $230. And the voucher was for, let's call it gas, traveling. Okay? So at the end of the month, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to total up my vouchers. It was a slow month. I've only got one voucher for $230. And then I add up all my cash, and I've got $600 for a total of $830. Okay, so I don't have to go out and get 230, which is what I thought I used. Instead, what I'm going to do, I'm definitely going to call my gas, maybe I'll call it traveling expenses of 230. And then if I have 600 in cash and I want to bring it back up to, if I have 600 in petty cash and I want to bring it back up to 700, I would go grab $100 from the bank to put back in my drawer to replenish it to 700. And then it looks like I've just made some money, right? I have all of a sudden, I have it's like I found some money in my drawer, and we call this cash overage of 130. I used 230, but I only had to go get 100, right? It's not like I'm going to lower my expense. I'm going to keep that by itself and just treat this as a cash overage. That is petty cash.